Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. You all know me, Nathan Schwartz, and joining me in New Zealand, Dylan Williamson.
Good morning, Nathan.
Good evening. How is it going?
Not too bad, you know. We finally got after an entire week of like scorching hot weather while I was at work, I finally get a day off and it's now raining.
When I walked the dogs today, it was a real feel of -1 today. So it's
Beautiful.
always fun hearing about your wonderful summer times when we're in the midst of our winter.
Complaining about my little summer shower while you're at wait, -1 Fahrenheit as well?
Yeah, -1 Fahrenheit. So I
Nice.
think it was actually 7. It was just the real feel because there was a good wind and going, just making the dog
Yep.
walk nice and chilly. I normally do my like box score watching TikTok series, and today I like my
You're
fingers
like,
were just numb.
box cook.
Like my phone was not registering when I was touching it that like that was a hand, and like
Yeah, like
I
your fingers
couldn't
were
hit the start and
frozen
stop.
solid. It's like, no, that's not what a finger feels like. That's just like your keys or something.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like, all right, I guess we're not doing that today. Um, but we have had two incredibly small bits of NBA news. One I guess maybe not so small. Just
Oh,
not the most. I don't know. Not, they didn't make a big deal out of that. Out it. The Clippers have signed an extension of Kawhi Leonard. How are you feeling?
yeah, I mean, pretty good. It's not a terrible contract. The big fear with Kawhi going into free agency and with Paul George and James Harden as well is that they are getting older, and you don't want to end up in that position where like you sign your best players, which you're happy about, but they're like signing for like 50 million a year until they're like 38. And so this is I think it's a 3-year extension.
Hmm.
Um, Kawhi is still looking awesome. Like he's still at times looking like he can be like the best player in any game, and in any playoff series. So it's good to have him around. He'll be there for the opening of the Intuit Dome, and also I think as a sign that the organization is happy with where the team is, and that Kawhi is happy with where the team is. And so now we just got to get PG back and a good playoff run coming up.
And Harden. Can't resign him till the offseason because of how the contracts fix work. But I feel like with Kawhi signing, Kawhi wouldn't sign with the Clippers until they like sign the dotted lines on the PG trade. I feel like if he's signing this extension at less than a max, less than max years, it's a good sign that he feels confident that PG and Harden, as much of a wink, wink, nod, nod, like deal as can be, is coming back.
Yeah, like he will only sign once like he's confident in the direction and everything's in line. And so for him to resign, like this is where he wants to be. So there's like that perspective as well that like he actually does want to be on this team and he wants to be in the city. Like this is the only team that he's ever chosen to be on. And so, he wants to be here. He continues to choose to be here. It's an exciting future, man. We've got, all NBA players, a brand new arena opening up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just need the banner to hang in it.
Good luck with that.
I don't want to open the Intuit Dome. It's like you remember in like the 2011 or whatever it was Clippers, and they hung the banners over top of the Lakers banners, but
Hmm.
didn't have any banners. So it's just like players.
Honestly, I actually
Like
thought those
covering
banners
up a
looked cool.
championship with Jamal Crawford's banner.
I thought the player banners looked cool. Like, hey, if
Yeah.
you don't have the championships, I would have actually loved to have seen them do that with like Clippers from history, like have the Bob McAdoo banner out there.
I
Like
mean,
have the legends banners. There's, if
isn't that kind of sad though when you got like Bob McAdoo and Alton Brand hanging up over top of Kobe and Shaq and Kareem's championships.
okay, is it better? Yeah, what is going on with my dog in the other room? I don't know. Is it better or is it worse than just having them up there? Like, hey, you are playing, and you look up and you're like, oh, did our team win this? No, that's the other team that plays in this building. Like,
Yeah. I do support covering up the banners. I'm a
Yeah.
very, fuck 'em sort of attitude.
Well, speaking of fuck 'em, Marvin Bagley has been traded from the Detroit Pistons. He will now be a Washington Wizard as him and Isaiah Livers, 2 second-round picks going for Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala. And I hate to admit how excited I am for this trade.
Yeah, it's when they signed the Marvin Bagley contract, I think both of us were like, why the hell are they paying this dude so much money? Like, I get
Mhm.
taking a flyer, but like, why are you actually paying real money to this dude who's never shown to be a good NBA player? And now they're having to give up assets to just get rid of him. But I do also like it. And I think it's probably from the same perspective as you. We haven't talked about this before, but I imagine we're going in the same direction, which is um, you get players out of the rotation who suck. Um, and the fewer guys in your rotation that suck, the better your team will be.
No, I'm actually going to this from the
Oh,
I think
okay.
they got players who don't suck. Um, like, when I went to the Wizards Pistons game, thinking that this was going to be the bottom of the Pistons season, is the tankathon, like giant tank bowl. Wizards Pistons, the 2 worst teams in the league. And then they got blown out. And while they're getting blown out, Danilo Gallinari is barking orders at the young guys. There's like a moment where Denny Avdia is starting to like feel it and like, starting to talk and chirp. And like Gallo like slaps him and is like, no, get back on D. And I'm like, I turned to my wife. I was like, the Pistons need that veteran presence. The Pistons need a Danilo Gallinari who can space the floor. And now, like, we've traded for Danilo, the guy who I was like thinking is going to prevent Washington from just being a poverty franchise, from setting the record for fewest wins. And now he's a Piston. Now the Pistons might hit double-digit wins. This is exciting. Life has
Yeah,
changed.
that's exactly what I mean. You move out these, two negative players, Isaiah Livers, who was like a spot up shooter who couldn't shoot, and Marvin Bagley, who was like a big man who couldn't like protect the rim or rebound. And you bring in a veteran with some scoring ability. And Mike Muscala is the other guy in the trade, right? Like
Yep.
the biggest issue I think for the Pistons offensively is that they play all these non-shooters at the same time, and it's really hard for the guys who um, are trying to get downhill to do anything. And now you bring in Mike Muscala, who only when was it last year, the year before that he was with the Thunder, and he had really good minutes because he just provided floor spacing for a team that loves to get downhill and get to the rim.
Yeah, neither of them are shooting the best this year. I did want to go and pull up their shooting stats. That's and like 3-point wise, Danilo 31%, Muscala
Hey, that'd lead the
27%.
team.
Like not the that's not true, but closer to true than I think we need to discuss. But yeah, I think this is a win for the Pistons. It's really funny that they give up a recent number 2 draft pick, and they have to pay the 2 seconds to give up upon him. Like,
Mm.
uh, you're giving up 2 guys under 25 or 25 and under, um, and you're getting a 35 and a 32-year-old, and you're paying the draft capital to, like, give up on these guys. It's just funny in
Yeah.
my mind that that's what it took.
Did you see the Woj bomb? The huge breaking news. His explanation of the picks is like it's either 25 or 26 and it's convoluted. Like it's literally in the tweet. It's like the conditions are convoluted. So there might be some kind of
Uh,
fake second round picks.
oh, yeah.
Like when his
I
tweet
mean, if
on
you're the
what picks are
Pistons
included is just like I can't figure it out.
yeah, if you're the Pistons, like, giving up seconds if they're your own seconds really hurts. Like, maybe these are second round
Mm,
swaps or something.
yeah. Or it might be like the worst of this team, and this team's pick top 20 protected or something, something ridiculous.
Yeah. The best of these teams' picks, but only the best if it's 45 or worst. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise it becomes a photocopier and a vending machine.
Shout out, Kyle Korver. Or was it JJ Redick? Which one of the all white shooter? Who got
I
traded for
think it was Kyle
the?
Korver, yeah.
Okay, I had a momentary like, was it Redick? No. All right, Korver it is. But now moving on from the old guys getting traded for young guys, we plan to discuss the top players 24 and under, or the top 30 guys under 25. And yesterday, I was just kind of goofing around, kind of thinking of what the list would be. TikTok tells me if I post the photo video things, like that does better. They're like really advertising, pushing for it. So, like, you know what? Let me just throw together a quick top 30. I spent maybe an hour on it. It's threw it out and it had wonderful engagement. This is not something that's an original idea. Thinking basketball did it, Hoops Hype. They've just done a top of I don't know what they did under or 24, but
25
I don't know,
under
was it
25 or something.
yeah, 25 under 25 is probably a more fitting list, but there's a lot of really good players that are under this age. So I wanted to start with 30. And I think the way that we should do this is we'll each say our guy who's number 30, or you'll say a guy that's 30. If he's higher up on my list, we'll wait for him. If he's not, then we'll discuss him and we'll kind of go back and forth until we discuss all of our guys. And I'm making a few changes to the TikTok list, but yeah, what do you want to give us the first guy? Who's your deep cut? You said that you had someone for number 30.
Yep. Yep. So I think one thing that struck me as I was looking into this, like even when we get higher up in the list, is I've got like all these really imperfect guys where it's like, okay, like solid player, he's got some skills, puts up some box score numbers, and then you dig deep, and it's like, oh, he's really efficient scorer, and like the team really fucking sucks whenever he plays. And so one guy that's an exception to that, a guy who's provides um some value offensively due to his ball movement, his off ball shooting, a guy who scores efficiently, um, takes good shots and can really shoot from behind the arc, and a guy who statistically and by the eye test contributes positively to his team. Although it's not a very good team, the numbers are still good when he's in. My number 30 guy is Brandon Pajemski.
I was wondering if you might do pods. I was watching in the Warriors Bucks game earlier today, yesterday's game earlier today. By the time you're listening to this, who knows how many days ago this game was. Um, and God damn it, Pods gets away with so many travels and carries. This guy, he did the James Harden double step back, the pickup, let me sidestep again and hit it over Dame Lillard. But he's good and he's crafty and he creates. And as I'm watching that game, I was kind of questioning should he be higher on my list or like should he have made my top 30? I don't have him here, but I think it's an um excellent name to have on this list. I think what he has provided as far as playmaking and creation, and the Warriors offense gets really stagnant at times. Like um they threw the ball to Sarge on the post and he dribbled, he got stopped, and everyone just stood there like, what do we do now? And it was when Pajemski was on the bench, but when he came back in, he was kind of leading that offense with Curry out. And I don't know how many other well, actually a lot of other guys on this list do something similar to that, but um just kind of crazy that he's come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, is he the starting point guard right now for a team
Uh,
that's theoretically trying to make the playoffs? Um,
I mean, when Curry sits, yeah, yeah. My number 30, I'm gonna shift it around a bit from the one I posted on TikTok, but I think I'm sorry. Sorry, TikTok fans. Naz Reid's getting bumped back.
oh no.
Um, and it's nothing to do with Nas. I love what Nas brings the spacing in to the offense. You know, he is a small ball center, but he's really more of like a power forward because he's always playing with either Gobert or Towns. One's out there. I guess not always, but the spacing he provides as a big man is really valuable. The offensive impact that it has for the team. But as you said, there are flaws in these guys' his plays. I don't see him as much of a passer. He is probably a bit of a below average rebounder for what we would look for in a starting big man or a starting in center. And then defensively, he's undersized. There is not as much rim protection than coming from him as a five man. Like I think being a being a backup 4 or 5 that gets to come and be the scoring punch is an awesome role for him. But I don't know how much more he's got.
Yeah, like a TikTok favorite for sure. And it's easy to understand why. Like, he's a really fun guy to watch. The way he's able to, as a big man, um, create shots for himself. But as you say, he's not. He's not a lead initiator. And there's a reason that he's in that 6-man role, which is that he probably can't really start at the 5, which is his most natural position, because of the defense and the rebounding limitations. But a really excellent scorer and positive contributor to his team, from that 6-man scoring role.
Yeah. All right. Who is your 29? I forgot. Did you have Nas on your board?
Nas was my 27, so we're in a similar range.
I should have said that at Nas and then waited. So who's your 29?
Guy who probably has slipped from a lot of people's minds because he's dealt with availability issues this year and he's just sort of rounding back into shape. The man who didn't steal Aaron's girlfriend, Walker Kessler, who was the apple of our eye last year, becoming a immediate defensive force. Struggled to start the year, but overall the numbers, in terms of rim protection, are looking just as good as ever, which is to say that teams cannot score at the rim whenever he's on the floor. But struggle with injury this year. But the Jazz are coming right, and the defensive impact, I think, is still there.
Yeah. I listened to the Saturday Slam Jam this morning as I was fixing my car, and they were discussing how they're using him more as a cutter. So when I fired up the Lakers Jazz game and was looking for it, and it is really funny. They'll put him out in the 3-point line, run their offensive set, and then he just comes cutting down to the lane, and you've got this 7-foot, what is he, 7'2", cutting, and then getting these high lob passes. It's really hard to deal with, especially if you have just like one rim protector, and he's gotten engaged in the play trying to stop Clarkson or Sexton. Like, a lot of teams don't have that secondary help. I did not have him on my list. But that kind of just speaks to the depth.
Yeah, and just on that, that's like a really clever play because it's almost like running a pick and roll, except that the defensive attention is diverted by the actual on-ball action. And so your big man is doing a traditional big man role, which is come from the top and drive straight down the lane, except that the defense is not in a position where that's their primary concern. But yeah, like I said, it's easy to forget about him because he's had such an injury-plagued season. But hopefully coming right, and hopefully the defensive impact is able to sustain.
Oh, I didn't forget about him. I just chose not to have him on here. It just, I liked him. I
Easy
liked
to
Mark Williams.
Yeah.
I had thought about Jordan Poole even. Did Poole make your list?
No.
Like, he's got awful right now. But like last year, what we've seen him do, I think this is a bad situation. But like, I was like, there's a case that Jordan Poole, not from what we've seen this year, but from what we've seen in the past, deserves to be on this. And I probably should have said this earlier. We're not ranking on potential. We are ranking on right now. How good, how much talent, how much impact we're seeing. Okay, so you had Walker Kessler, you're 29. My 29 is Devin Vassell. Did he make your list?
Yeah, 25. So we're pretty much in line here.
All right, we'll talk about him when we get up to your 25 then. Who is your 28?
Here's a spicy one. This is a guy who once in my top 100 players, not that long ago, I had as a top 15 player in the NBA. Now my 28th ranked player under 25 is Zion Williamson.
Oh my God. Okay, we have to wait. No, you know what? That's too spicy. I have Zion significantly higher. I had him down at 15, which I thought was a sizable enough drop for where Zion was, um, for where he's coming from. What makes you have him all the way this far back?
um, I think he's so flawed as a player, and his strengths have really regressed, um, either due to injury or due to conditioning. So he's a big man who can't shoot, who can't defend the rim, and doesn't defensive rebound. So you have to play him with a floor spacing center, which is where Valanciunas comes in, which further hurts the defense because there are like three guys in the NBA who can protect the rim and also shoot. And you're not going to get one of those guys easily. So that hurts you there. Um, then you come into the fact that you've got all this detriment from those flaws I just said, but in the past, the strengths were sufficient to compensate for that. But this year, not driving efficient offense. The scoring efficiency is not even good. Like this guy can't even finish around the rim at a high level, and that's the one thing that he's good at is getting to the rim and finishing at the rim. And so you've got all these downsides. Doesn't defend, doesn't rebound, is a difficult fit for your team. You have to construct weird rosters to try to fit him in, and then the things that he's good at, he's not even that good at. And so it's a really tough situation for him. Um, considered uh, put it this way, I think Naz Reid, who I had, right next to him, sorry, right above him, is a more efficient scorer and who doesn't have as pronounced weaknesses.
That's crazy. That that is, I mean, he's still hitting 58% of his shots from the floor, still getting you 22 points. It's night. And like, believe me, I've seen some absolute stinkers of Zion Williamson that I believe had me come on this pod and question, like, is this no longer a guy that you can build around? Is this guy that needs to be a sixth man? But even if we were to trim back his role to being a sixth man, which I don't think we're there yet, um, he still has to be a better looking sixth man than Nas Reed, right?
I don't
Like
know, man. Like, what is the value that he's giving you?
he had, so they
A,
have
a,
been
a
trying to have him
crisp
be more of a passer
58%
this
e
year.
field goal percentage as a big man?
Yeah, yeah, and
Barely above
I
average
mean,
efficiency?
he's attacking the in the basket. He's improving as a passer for right now, and it's been kind of a little bit of an awkward transition in for him to be more of a passer. They also have a lot in flux around him as far as like who is in the rotation every day, basically.
Mm.
I'm like they have too much depth and not enough of not enough solidified around him. This is way way too low for Zion. I know he has been disappointed, and if you're going from like expectations to performance, it's a disappointing step back. But I cannot get there with him.
How about this, Nate? He makes me sad. Watching him makes me sad.
That that's that's fine. That that is acceptable. He was your 28.
He was my 28th,
He was your 28, correct?
and Nas Reed was my 27.
Okay. Uh, okay. My 28th is Jalen Johnson. Is he on your list?
He is 24.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll discuss him when we get up to 24. My 27 is Anthony Simons. Is he on yours?
He was my probably toughest omission, or my closest omission. So he is not
Okay.
in my top
He was the
three.
one that I've getting in the most. He's the guy I'm getting the most pushback on TikTok, like for actually having too low, and I bumped him up a little bit on this. Now I get why you don't have him. It's very inefficient offense, Um, it's not particularly good with offense, but is still offense. And I I struggle with him because he's dribbles with his head down a lot. The coach is doing him no favors. Chauncey Billups' offense is antiquated at best. Um, you know, it, it it's a lot of ISO ball without a good isolation player. Like the Jeremy Grant mid post ups, you'd think he was Michael Jordan with how many they tried to give him, or how many touches they give him off that elbow. Like it's a garbage offense. And so when I see Simons, I see him clawing something out of nothing. And while I don't always like his instincts with the ball, I think I need to respect the pure production of what he is producing. And you know, man has very little help, very little going for him as far as the rest of the teammates. And he's still hitting 38.5% of his threes. He's 90% from the free throw line, getting there a fair amount. Doubled his free throw attempts from last year, just like driving, drawing fouls, and 23 points.
Yeah, like I guess I'm if we were considering more or if I put more weight into his previous seasons, he would definitely be higher. Because he has been like a pretty good offensive contributor in other situations. But solely in this season, he has not been a valuable offensive piece. And as you say, a big part of that is that he's on like this god awful team. Like I was so the way that I play 2K is I take every game when I come up against a new team, I go and I fix all their ratings because 2K doesn't know how good players are at stuff. And as I was getting in, and I was like, man, some of these guys in this rotation like are not good at anything. Like some of these guys that they're relying on are just not good NBA players. And so like I do appreciate the fact that he's in this really tough situation. Um, but I think it's really inefficient scoring. Like you say, it's head down, not making good reads, so not contributing to good offense. They are
Mm-hmm.
19 points per 100 possessions better when he's not on the floor. 19. He is one of the worst players in
Yeah.
the league from on-off perspective. And you come into the nature of Anthony Simons, which is he is a shooting guard who's too small to play shooting guard. And so he has to, you've either got to sacrifice your offense by having him run the point, or you've got to massively sacrifice your defense by having him run the two. And either way, you're just hugely limiting yourself on one end of the floor.
Isn't it wild that after like a decade plus of Damian Lillard in Portland, where it was always the problem of having too many too small guards, him and CJ, you never had like another guard with size. Now they have Simons and Scoot Henderson. It's just like, really? You've learned nothing? It's been how long and you've learned nothing? Come on.
Yeah. And
All right.
I mean, like it'd be better for everyone if he wasn't on this team. Like there are certainly better situations for him, and if he could get out of the way, so they can, I don't know, just start Shaden Sharp at the two, that'd be better for everyone.
Yeah. I hope they figure out something to do or something different. It's and Shaden Sharp needs to play more. He's too exciting. Like the fact that he does not sniff this list for either of us, I'm assuming, unless you're gonna
Yeah.
pull a rabbit out of the hat and have him at 15 or something.
Another close
It's
submission.
like he should be here. He should be on this list, and he's just not. Um, can I get your list again? Because I'm trying to keep track of it on the side here. Or you've had Walker
Yes.
Kessler, her at 30.
I'll give you 30 through. We
Who
were up
else did you have?
to
29 through 20.
here. So Pods at 30, Walker Kessler 29, Zion 28, Nasri 27. I don't think we've done my 26. Jalen Johnson at 24.
Nope, we're ready for 26.
Right, we're going for it.
Yeah, let's
This is not a hot one, and it's also not one that I feel that great about. Like I kind of feel like he's too low. Um, it's the best guard on the Chicago Bulls, Kobe White.
I had him much higher. Let's hang off on him, and we can discuss him when we get higher. Oh,
Mhm.
you know what, let's discuss him now, and then we'll just skip him when I get up to him. Why did you have
Alright.
him this low? Because I think if yeah, tell me why you had him low.
Um, maybe it's a bit of you know what? Maybe he should be higher. Like there's the thing of the offense is not good when he's on, which is something that I always look for in a point guard. Is like, okay, if you're a good offensive player, why is the team not good at offense when you're on? But they are so much worse when he's off. Um, e- like he does compete defensively as well, which is something that I like. Puts up volume from three on good efficiency. It's like maybe he should be higher, um, especially with the recent run that he's having. But part of me wonders whether this is like a hot streak and he's going to regress a little bit to being what he's always been, which is like a decent third point guard or third guard rather. But it is the one that's my weakest position. It's the one that can most be talked up on.
Sorry, quick computer crash. Yes, you're telling me
Welcome
why
back.
you hate Chicago.
I do hate Chicago, to be fair, or rather the
So the
Bulls.
offense is bad when he's on. The offense is bad when he's off. Yeah, yeah. Not the whole city,
It's it's
just
it's it's more it's
just
more
the team
the
in which
worried about the hot streak, I think.
that's fair. Or because he I think if we had done this at the start of the season, which we did. We did rank, I think, top players at the start of the season. He would be nowhere near it. But if we just look back over the last 20 something games here, like 22 points, and 6 boards, 6 assists, and the Bulls have been winning with him in there, which I think is important that um, he's out there as things have changed. And watching the games, he's he's got size and actually competes defensively, which
Yeah.
like I'm not going to say he's a great defender, but he competes, and that makes up for so much. Like just trying, and it's astounding how little certain guys try. Looking at his
Mhm.
teammates specifically.
Yeah, yeah. Like when you've got size and you've got like a decent level of quickness, like just trying gets you to such a high baseline. You don't even have to be, a great defender, but if you got size and you actually try, like that raises your floor so much.
Hmm.
And I agree, that's one thing that, from the few games that I've watched of him is that like he does actually compete. Like he does try to get over screens and he does get into a stance, which is more than you can say for a lot of guys.
Yeah. I had him up at 20, so not too much farther. I am still worried a little bit about the streak, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. My 26 was Emmanuel Quickly, and
Mhm.
it's kind of a similar thing. Like the Knicks were awesome with Quickly off the bench, but he wasn't getting the minutes. Now he's a starter, and we're starting to see some flaws, some more holes, some bad decision making. That first game, he was there. Pascal was just on fire. He gets an offensive rebound with like 3 minutes left. He drives, gets into the middle of the floor, or doesn't have anywhere to go and just chucks up a bad shot. And you're like, dude, recognition of the moment, the plays, like you're now supposed to be the guy. I only have him at 26. Where do you have quickly?
21.
Oh, all right, all right. We're hitting relative same ranges for a lot of these guys here.
Yeah. And yeah, like I agree with everything you said. Like, I think if we were ranking him just based on like how he played in New York and like the potential of what he showed in New York, I think he'd maybe be a bit higher. Just as
Mhm.
like a guy who actually can drive some offense and also again like does compete defensively. And I do think that he's like a starting caliber point guard, and will I think improve as time goes in Toronto.
Absolutely. And like the difference between him and Kobe White on the season, 18 and a half points. Uh, quickly in Toronto, 18.6 points. Like they're putting up very similar stat lines on pretty similar efficiency right now. Like depending on how you want to cut the guy's numbers. If you want to make one look better, you can. If you want to make the other look better, you can. But I think we're just kind of in that range for them. Who is your 25?
Our good friend Devin Vassell.
Okay, that's where Vassell came in for you. My 25 is Jaime Jaquez Jr. How much
Hmm.
higher do you have him? I know you've got to be all in on Jaquez. What is he like,
No,
13 for you?
he was a close omission.
Really?
Yeah.
I expect you to be all about Jaquez because of the efficiency. I I don't know that I see like a ton of improvement coming from him. I don't know that I would tell you that I think in 3 years he could be an all-star, but it's just he shows up and he has this old man game. Like a lot of scoops, a lot of like, let me back you down from the 3-point line, and then I hit you with the spin and two-step with a scoop and a floater. And I'm just like, man, this like any team could use him. And then he shoots well and passes well. It's like I don't know what more you wanted from a rookie. Like, why did so many teams pass on him? Why did the Lakers of all teams pass on him? Picking like Hood Shafino, the pick right before him, just drives me crazy. He was a UCLA guy. He was in our
Yeah.
backyard.
Yeah.
It makes me mad. Mm. All right. Well, then who is so wait, Jalen Johnson was your 24,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. My 24, I've gone back and forth on these guys. I'm gonna tell you it's Jaden McDaniels right now. Where do you have Jaden McDaniels?
20.
Okay, same relative range. Um, I thought he would be higher coming into this exercise. Did you think he would be higher too?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say so. Like, if you just think about his value as an overall player, it's like he's one of the best defensive non-big men in the entire NBA and
Yeah.
does like shoot well enough. I think ultimately what dragged him down a little bit for me was like the offense. I'm still not all there on. Like he's not
Hmm.
a great finisher. The 3-point percentage is decent, but doesn't take a lot of them.
Worse
Um,
than I was expecting in looking more into it. I remember him coming in from college with like really high shooting comps. Um, as crazy high as like he could be the next Kevin Durant because he's 6'9", super skinny and could shoot. But like, what is he at? 34%, 35% from three. That's fine. That's actually below league average at this point.
yeah,
League average
and
3-point
and
shooting.
quite low volume as well.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize league average 3-point shooting at this point is 36.7, which just speaks to where shooters are getting. And like, all right, so he was your 20. Who is your 23 then?
My 23 is Jalen Duren,
Mm,
the
okay,
anchor
that's
of one of the worst defenses in the league. But all the rim protection numbers are pretty good on him. Like I think like it's very Dwight Howard vibes watching this guy. Prime Dwight Howard, that is. Just like the athleticism, the size, the strength. Um, even the rebounding. I think he's going to be like a really positive defender. And it's like the athleticism to do like the basic, screen and roll and catch a lob and finish inside.
Yeah. And like he does swing at a lot of things. He's a little bit more foul. Actually, he's worked on the foul prone. Or at the start of the season, he was picking up a lot of fouls. Like the per 36 minutes, he was
Yeah.
basically fouling out. Now he's down to
Yeah.
just 3.8. I
Yeah.
had him up a little bit higher. I had him at 22, so just one spot higher. I hope he develops more offensively. There's talk that eventually a 3-point shot will come. I don't need that. I just need the ability to do a little bit more off the dribble, or a post move would be nice. And like as far as the rim protection not being great, or the defense not being great, there's a lot of sieves in Detroit. He has to take on a lot of challenges. I don't blame him too much for
It's a lot of work being the low man in Detroit.
Yeah. But hey, they're going to be able to field Danilo and Bogdanovich and
It's gonna make it so much better.
Joe Harris. That's a defensive
all
core,
these
right?
all these other white guys who cannot move their feet from side to side.
At least they'll provide more spacing, because that also could help his offense and to look better. Like you don't have to provide a lot of spacing when it's Killian and even Cade and Ivy. I mean, they're fine. Killian's not, but there's just not a lot of spacing there to go around. So that's your 23. My 23 is Keegan Murray. And I think the fact that a lot of my followers are also followers of Aaron for his Kings fandom has influenced the fact that a lot of people are very pro Keegan in my comments and saying this was way too low.
Sacramento Kings TikTok low-key is it's one of the best from a fandom perspective.
It's strong. That Nas Reed fandom. Nas Reed fandom.
Yeah,
You
Nas
guys are the real champs.
It's Nas Reed and the Sacramento Kings.
Did you have Keegan on your list? Where'd you have him?
I had him at 18.
Okay.
Efficient volume shooter from 3 and defends. Like, what more do you really want from a wing?
Star potential?
Yeah.
I mean, like, we're gonna
shot
start getting into the
creation,
guys.
defensive playmaking. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know that I look up and I see Keegan Murray all-star in the near future. I don't think it's entirely impossible, especially if the shot creation really comes along, which he's been doing more of it in their offense. But right now I see him as a 3-and-D wing, and like that's a really good role player. That's a super valuable piece to have, but it's a valuable piece to have if you have other pieces already in place.
Yeah.
All right. So that was my 23. Duran was my 22. Have you said your 22 yet?
My 22 is Nick Claxton.
Nicky Clax. Okay.
Yeah. Really solid rim protector. Probably like the most switchable perimeter guy among like the elite rim protectors. But doesn't control the defensive boards in the way that other elite rim protectors do, and not really anything of an offensive player. But a really versatile and impactful defender.
Yeah, I had him at 21, so very similar placement, and for much the same reasons. Like his great lob threat, he finishes really well. You're not getting anything else from him on offense, and defensively, I like that he could switch onto a lot of guys, and he protects the rim well. I do still think that I'd be a little bit afraid to go up against Joel Embiid in a playoff series, provided Joel Embiid is playing in the playoff series. Just like size-wise, I think you can hold
I
him.
guess that's the other weakness is, whenever you've got like these slender centers, it becomes difficult matching up one-on-one against post players and getting defensive rebounds. Where you sort of come into a situation where you almost need to play like a big 4 to defend one-on-one post players and help with boxing out, which makes your roster construction a little bit difficult.
Yeah, having the slim centers, you need to have that thick power forward. the Pascals, the Julius Randles. It's your time, baby. You just gotta find your way to a Victor or a Chet or someone else, some slim center. Get there. All right, here's my 21. Who's your 21?
Was Quickly.
Quickly. All right. My 20 was Kobe. Be White. Who is your 20?
McDaniels.
Daniels. All right. 19 time. Who you got at 19?
Speaking of slim centers, I got Wemby at 19.
Interesting. I have Wimby a little bit higher, but I understand the hesitancy
Yeah.
to have him this far back.
Yeah, like I could see a case for him to be as high as like I don't know, like pushing top 10. A lot of like the all-in-one metrics really like him, which is interesting.
Mhm.
Like your EPMs and your LeBrons and that sort of thing. These plus minus stats with a box score prior do really like him. But I like the rim protection. I think is really good already. I think that's legit. Um, the positioning isn't always awesome. Like the switchabilities, there's some of that there. You run into the same problems that we were just talking about with Nick Claxton in terms of skinny centers, can't defend that well on the post, and allows a lot of offensive rebounds. And I think offensively at this point is probably a negative. The scoring efficiency isn't great. The decision making isn't great. These numbers are off the top of my head, but I think he shoots like 30% on above the break threes and has taken 150. And he shoots 74% at the rim and has taken 166 shots. So he takes as many inefficient above the break pull up threes as he does layups. So like shot selection is an issue at this point. But like if we're talking potential, he's top 5. But at this point, good rim protector, probably a negative offensive player, although he's asked to do too much. And yeah.
Yeah, I forget which one of those all-in-one stats. The value of a steal is worth like 9 points per game, and the value of blocks is something. It's like 7 or 8. Like if you have good defensive metrics as well as producing offensive
Mm,
numbers, that can really mess up some things. And like I I'm really excited for the future of Wemby, what he can do. But right now, there's a lot of times where like, hey, he's out of position, and his massive wingspan helps him get back, gets that block, or gets that deflection that becomes a steal, or like lobs. You can put a ball anywhere in the air, and finds a way to like not only grab it, but really do a good job of corralling it and pushing it towards the rim. It doesn't have to be a dunk, but like it turns from a lob into a basket very easily because he's got really good hands and really long wingspan. Once that gets more stable, um, I mean, sky is the limit. You said top 5. I'll say top 2. Who like I I, I think he's that type of talent on potential. Okay, so he's your 19. My 19 is Tyler Hero. Did you leave off Tyler Hero?
no, I had him at 15.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I ran into the situation where I had like all these a lot of guards in like the top 15. And I was like, Tyler Hero is like a decently efficient shooter who has been in big playoff games before, which and performed fairly well, which is more than a lot of these guys can say. And so I gave him some love.
That's that's fair, and like that's kind of what I'm seeing. It's hard for me to push him too high, just because the Heat have really shown whether or not he plays does not affect their winning or losing. But like when he plays, I mean, he had a stretch there where where he was putting up a couple of 30-point games in a row. He can get you the assist. His scoring is pretty inefficient from 2, but from 3, there's only 2 guys who are attempting more threes than him that shoot a better percentage. Like he's 21st in 3-point attempts per game. If he qualified, he doesn't with the games played because he's been injured a bit. But I think that is a good. I think he's a good player. I think he would help a lot of teams. Um,
Yeah. And even though like he is one of these like flawed small guard chuckers. Like he has shown an ability to fit into like a well-run team, both offensively and also defensively. Like he's a terrible defender, but
Hmm.
like he knows how to like at least like be the low man in the zone. Like he knows how to play NBA defense.
And that matters. That counts for something. All right. So that was your 19, my 19. Who's your 18?
Was Keegan Murray.
Okay. God, I feel like one of these we're gonna have to land on the same guy,
Yeah.
but it hasn't happened yet. Um, my 18 is wing Jalen Williams, and I feel bad having him this low because he is a player without flaws in my mind. He is strong enough to defend threes, fast or strong enough to defend fours, fast enough to defend threes. He's developing some some offensive creation. I always call it a post, but it's like that mid post. Let me take a dribble pull up, or let me back down spin into a fade. That type of game, as well as hitting his threes. And like, if I told you he scored 20 points and had 5 and 5, you're like, great, that sounds normal. If I told you he scored 15 but had 10 assists, you'd be like, oh, I see that. There's just nothing he doesn't do decently well in my book.
Yeah, I had him up at 14, and I've considered going even higher with him. Ultimately, the thing that I eventually decided on against like putting him up into like the top 10, I did run into the situation where I was like, man, all these guys are so flawed. Like, there's something I can like this massive net
Hmm.
that I can pick with all of these guys. Maybe I just put Jalen Williams there because like he's the most perfect guy. Um, Ultimately, what stuck him at 14 and not any higher is that the offense with him and without Shea is really bad. No matter who else he plays for, if Shea's not on the court, the offense falls apart. And so he's got some work to go as just like a offensive, as like the primary offensive guy.
I gotta ask, because I'm looking at your list and I'm starting to wonder, do you have guys who are currently injured on your list? I'm starting to fear that there might be some guys missing.
Missing from my list or missing from your list?
Missing from your list.
Oh,
My list is perfect. I
oh, this is exciting. I mean, I'm sure there's someone I've forgotten. I feel like we had a lot of the same guys.
all right. You've got some spots that I'm like, man, how do you have these guys this high? Like, what about other player X and Y that I'm not going to name yet? All right, so that was your
We'll find
18.
out. We'll find out who I totally forgot when we get there.
That was your eight, or that was my 18. And your
Yeah.
18 was Keegan Murray. Who's your 17?
I went with Lamelo.
Okay, man. All right, you're cracking my top 10 here. Or
Mm.
talk to me about LaMelo.
Um, really, availability issues, consistency issues, decision making issues. But one of the best passes in the NBA and a high volume and decent efficiency 3-point shooter. Really bad once he steps inside the arc, but from three puts them up and does it with decent volume. Has proven in the past that he can be the guy in a good offense. Um, Defensively, not the case. But this year alone, the offense is still terrible when he's on. I didn't want to put him into that top 10 level while he's, you know, running a 111 offensive rating.
Yeah, there was a stretch there. It's only a 9 game stretch pulling it up, but from November 5th to November 22nd, where he's averaging 32 points, 8.5 assists, and like 5 boards. Um, the man does stuff. He puts up good numbers. Now, in that time, they're -6.5 with him on the court. They lost most of these games. Like yeah, it wasn't a particularly tough stretch of games. They played Washington 3 times in there, like and lost one of those 3 games
Hmm.
by 16 points. So it is a little bit hard for me to get that excited about him. but I do just love how he pushes the tempo. I think you could probably switch him and Tyrese Halliburton without too much of a detriment. I think Halliburton is better, but like I think if they built that team around him, LaMelo could be having a Halliburton-esque season or esque run. And Halliburton is streaky too. So like that was kind of my reason for having him a
Yeah,
little bit
no,
higher.
that's a good point. It's like maybe unlocking him too much for the absolute like catastrophe of a roster that he's on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hope that they didn't have Miles Bridges to start. Not a fan of Miles Bridges. Fuck that guy. But he does play good with LaMelo. And then Mark Williams has also missed some games. I don't know what the overlap between those three players in and out were, but I kind of expect now that LaMelo is back, some good performances and some increased play.
yeah.
Did not happen against San Antonio.
Hopefully that can result in some like positive basketball, some wins,
Yeah.
some outscoring the opponent. That's his biggest issue.
I mean, hey, he's you play Dungeons and Dragons. He's a glass cannon. He will score, but you can put up points against him like very easily. You can do the damage against him just as well. My 17 has the inverse problem. My 17 is Evan Mobley. Where'd you have Mobs?
I put him up at 10.
Wow. The thing with Mobley for me is we keep talking about how he's going to be a super defender. Like that is the trajectory for him. And when him and Allen are out there, or even him by himself, like they patrol the paint fairly well. They do a good job there. But the eye test watching in Mobley play against wings has not stood out. You're smiling. I'm sure you've got a stat that'll prove me wrong. But I can tell
No,
you,
not at all.
I just tell you the eye test. I don't like what I see when he has to guard someone who plays a bit more on the perimeter or play in space. I don't think he's there yet, and the offense has been really limited.
Yeah, I mean I do agree that those are the two biggest knocks against him. Is like he's officially he's theoretically playing as like an on-ball defender because he's having to play so much 4. When really like defensively he's a 5, like he should just be roaming the paint. And so like the on-ball stuff is a valid concern. And then the offense, like we were, or at least I was, so high on what he was going to become because of like the shooting and like ball handling potential that he showed, and like none of that, like literally none of that has eventuated. He's pretty much, he can score well at the rim and nowhere else, and can't do anything on the ball. And so like at this point he is just like a rim protecting center, but the rim protecting is really good.
Really good. Yeah.
And he doesn't fall into some of the traps that some of these other rim protectors have, where like, yeah, okay, he blocks a lot of shots, but the defense isn't that good, or the rim stats aren't that good, or like they don't finish plays because he can't box out. Like he's gotten good enough at all that sort of stuff that he actually is just a really impactful defender. And I before I put him at 10, the one thing that I checked just to make sure was how are the numbers when he's at the 5? The numbers without Jared Allen, and the defense is still awesome. The rim protection is still awesome. The rebounding is still awesome. And so like that gave me the confidence that this is like a guy who at the 5
really can
is
do it.
just like, yeah, this is a legit defensive presence. Even
Yeah.
if he's not an on-ball stopper and he can't do anything with, outside of finishing at the rim.
I asked Aaron about this. Might have been a text, might have been on the pod. But would you trade Jared Allen for Pascal Siakam? Move Evan Mobley to the 5 full time. Allen is still only 25 years old, so he could conceivably fit with the Toronto timeline. How do you feel about that?
I mean, like from a value perspective, for sure. You do like run into like the issue that Cleveland already has, which is playing 2 guys who aren't great shooters in the front court. Although that hasn't held them back a great deal. in terms of offense when Garland and Mitchell are in, like even with two non-shooters at the big spots, they've been decent enough on offense. So you run into that perspective. And then from Toronto, like they absolutely fucked up and gave Jakob Poeltl a lot of money to be their starting center when he's like washed. At 27 years old or whatever the fuck he is, and so like there's definitely those perspectives, but I do think that Jared Allen is a upgrade on Pirtle, and makes more sense for Toronto than Siakam does, and I do think that Siakam is a better player than Jared Allen, and so from that perspective, makes sense for Cleveland.
I think it gives them another guy that really could help right now. And it's a guy who wants to get out and run. And when you've got two small guards, getting out and running is huge. And it's very hard to get out and run when you're playing two big centers. So as Mobley's your five, you've got a five that's going to run, you got a four that's going to run. Like this team now can play with pace. I think that's also, and we've talked a lot about it. Like to unlock Mobley, it's probably going to be at the five. So, like, hey, go get him while you can get him.
Yeah, and the thing that's changed over the last couple of seasons is he was like that kind of Wemby type center where the rim protection numbers were there, but not so good when he was strictly the five, and the rebounding wasn't good enough to play the five. But he's become stronger. He's now a much better defensive rebounder, much better box out guy, and I think he is now clearly a guy that can succeed as the lone five.
Yeah. All right. So then that means that was my what was Mobley? Mobley was my 17. We've already discussed Victor, who is my 16. Have we discussed your 16 yet? No.
My 16 is Franz.
People were very mad at my Franz placement being too high. What do you talk me down on Franz? I had him up to 10.
Yeah, I mean, like this is one of the guys where the flashes are better than the exception is better than the rule. So like what he shows from time to time is a lot better than what his just like play by play ability is. The puts up good box scoring numbers, but the efficiency isn't that great. If 50% field goal percentage is not great. The 3-pointer, after being pretty good in the first couple seasons, is down below 30%, which again is pretty rough. A lot of that's from doing more self-created stuff, which you do like to see him exploring that. Like from a Orlando Magic perspective, absolutely you should be empowering him to try to see if he can get that. And so yeah, like the efficiency is not that great. Does have some like sneaky defensive chops, like good size, decent movement. Definitely not a defensive liability. And is part of a Orlando Magic defense that is really good, and he's a contributor there. It's concerning to me though that the offense absolutely sucks when he's in. Another one of those guys, and like for example, if you sub Joe Ingles and take him out, the Magic offense suddenly becomes a lot better. And Joe Ingles is not like some elite offensive player. Now, Franz does suffer from playing with a lot of time a negative offensive guard, like he plays with Suggs or plays with Anthony Black. Some of these guys, whereas the second unit guys like Ingles, play with Cole Anthony as they go to a more offensive slanted lineup, which is probably part of that negative offensive on-off. But if you're making the case that this is like a really good offensive, player, then I would want the offense to be good, and I would want the scoring efficiency to be good, and both of those are bad.
Yeah, I actually like it most when he plays with his brother. And when he plays with his brother, he plays with that bench unit, it's him and Cole, and actually sometimes Joe, sometimes Goga. The sneaky thing about the Orlando Magic is their bench is a lot of times better than their starters.
Yeah,
Like
they're one of those teams.
and part of it's the fact that they go really big with their starting guards. They started Anthony Black for a long time. Now that Fultz is back, Fultz is getting back in the starting lineup. And like that shuffled things around. Maybe that'll help balance it out. And then the other thing is they want to keep that bench crew together. And so while Franz has been out, they've been starting Chuma Okeke. and Caleb Houston, who like were not playing, and it's like, okay, cool, now you guys are starters, and when he comes back, we'll push you out of the rotation. There's some funky stuff going on in Orlando, but I do throw the numbers out a little bit and lean more on the eye test. This with these guys is in what they're doing, and he is connecting, offensive players well when he is playing with more offensive players, and when he's not, I'm seeing him find like Anthony Black on cuts. I'm seeing him find some guys, and they're not always doing the best. They're not always finishing, but like it's what he's doing out there that is helpful that I really like about him. So I had him all the way up at 10, but I will say I kind of thought about these as in tiers of like, you know, good players on bad teams along with like good role players on good teams. Then we kind of got into the like, hey, third tier stars or like second tier dairy guys. And these are some guys that I think are pushing the second to first tier stars or maybe more firmly in the second tier stars, kind of between, I don't know, 17 and 10. And all of those guys can be pretty interchangeable in my mind. And I do think there's a cutoff where like 9 through 5 is much higher, and then 4 through 2. But all right, that's probably not fun. Franzi. Who's your 15? We already
15
discussed my
was
15.
Hero.
Oh,
14 was Jalen Williams.
14 is Jalen Williams. My 14 is Darius Garland.
He's my 12, so we're almost in line there.
Yeah, Garland. I kind of keep waiting for the leap. Like, there was the time where it was going to be sex land, and it was a lot of weight on the sex part of sex land, and then Colin kind of fell from grace, and then Darius stepped up, and it was going to be his team, and now they traded for Mitchell, and the fit is clunkier than I'd like. But thankfully, there's been a lot of times without Mitchell out there, and you can kind of still see the Mitchellist times. Garland runs the team really well. He can be a competent point guard who kind of just plays well without flaws. He's not pushing and creating turnovers. I wish there was a little bit more offensive creation than from him, but I like the fact that he doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and you combine that with the fact that he's been part of good teams who played in games with real stakes, which a lot of these guys that we've been talking about and that we, even higher than him that we will talk about, a lot of these guys haven't been in those same situations.
I do just want to say, because I said that he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He has high turnovers, 3.8 turnovers to just 6 assists. That's a really bad assist to turnover ratio. Watch the turnovers. It's not like he's throwing a dumb pass or over dribbling. He will try to push passes, but I don't feel like I feel like his turnovers are better ones for the volume. All right. So if he's your 12, who's your 13?
I went with Cade at 13.
You're killing me out here, Smalls. A 9. Why is he your 13?
He's on the worst team of all time.
Sure.
He is the guy on the worst team of all time.
Yeah, but he's the guy. He's the man. He's the reason why they didn't set the like super record. They just tied it. No, I get it. You want to say your piece?
Yeah, like certainly not a great environment for him. One of the worst teams in the NBA. Terrible spacing, terrible passing, bad defenders, like just not in a position to succeed. I feel like a little bit over too much is asked of him from like a playmaking perspective. Like I would really like it if he was like your second or third ball handler. But they like run him like he's Luka, and he's just not that level of playmaker at this point. The scoring efficiency is not awesome. The offense is no better when he's on the floor, which is to say that it's terrible when he's on the floor. But, you know, a guy that can create shots for himself and for others, a guy who can be a solid defender on a better team. I think certainly a guy that would play a lot better than what
what
he
we've
has been
seen.
able to.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, on the positives with Cade, if you just like bullet point the highlights, scores, play makes, defense, bigger guard, like that's all you want in a player. But then when you kind of get into the nitty gritty of it, it's like, well, the passing's not all that great. It is that a flaw on him? Is that a flaw on the roster construction? I lean towards it being more the fact that there's no spacing and a flawed roster around him. If we get 2 more years down the road and we haven't seen him improve, then it's probably something we have to worry about with Cade. The size, he could be a really good defender. The Pistons are absolutely god awful on defense, and he plays a lot of those minutes and is not making them better. And the scoring, yeah, it can be pretty inefficient. I put him up this high because I'm giving him the grace of it being more about the team and less about him, but I understand the criticism. So if
Yeah.
he's your 13, yeah, more?
No, that's fine.
All right. My 13, I went with Tyrese Maxey.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you have Maxey?
This one's going to blow your mind. Maybe not blow your mind.
5.
I had him at 6, and I considered really strongly putting him at 5.
Wow, that does blow my mind. Maxey has a wonderful, beautifully efficient game next to Joel Embiid. He pushes the tempo well. He spaces the floor well. He is comfortable pulling up off the dribble and shooting, scoring with the ball in his hands, or laying back and being a catch and shoot guy. The problem that I had with him, why I couldn't get him higher, is like right now I've seen a lot of the other guys be the star or be the star in moments, and we've just gone through a spell without Embiid, and maybe this is recency bias. The last several games, the star of Philadelphia has been Tobias Harris. Tyrese has struggled mightily now that Embiid is out, and there's not that gravity being pulled away from him. And I just couldn't get there with him.
Yeah, I mean, what swayed me overall, like I'm sure, like we agree that like he's a really good offensive guard, and the most important thing for guards is being able to create good shots for yourself and for others, and he does that. Shoots well from the perimeter, really, good volume and efficiency and difficult shots, which is a super valuable skill set. The thing that eventually swayed me is, very valid point on his recent struggles. The fact that he's being outplayed by Tobias Harris isn't a great sign. Respect to Tobias Harris. If you ask Daryl Morey, he's an all-star. But overall on the season, without Embiid, the team with Maxey on and Embiid off is still really good. It's still a +5 net rating. It's still a 119 offensive rating. Like Maxey on and Embiid off is still, in the totality, really good lineups.
I feel like a lot of that is probably getting skewed by Embiid going to the bench when they have big leads, and like Maxey
this
is
is
playing.
This is cleaning the glass, so it's no garbage time, but certainly like starter versus starter outplaying them, and then maybe it's some second unit play. Although there's no one from this level on who is until we get to like top 4 who has a strong net rating and a strong offense when they're on the floor. Like all the rest of these guys from now on, until we get to like those really elite guys, the team is not good offensively.
Fair. Yeah, I went and pulled up Maxey over the last 9 games, which I believe this kind of starts when Embiid's going out a bit. That's their Miami game through the most recent Sacramento game, and Embiid's back for some of those. I want to say because he's resting in between. But Maxey is 40% from the field, 30% from 3. yeah, it's still 25 points, but just the efficiency came way down when Embiid is missing the games, and it's being asked of Maxey to like take that charge. And hey, it might be recency bias. These are all young players; they grow every day. So, not going to quibble too much. Who then is your 12?
My 12 was Garland.
12 was Garland. My 12 is Chetty Holmgrens.
He was my 11. We're
Okay.
so close to lining up. We're just
We have not
not gonna
lined
do
up on a single guy. Dear God. For Chet, a lot of pushback also from TikTok on Chet being too high here. My thing with Chet is just he is anchoring a very good defense as a rookie. And like he is doing it being in good position, having the right hit chops. Not too many rookies average 2.5 blocks. He is doing it from the center position, whereas Wemby was doing it kind of from the combo, getting to be the help side blocker. Chad, I feel like, is really holding down the defense. He has hit some very clutch shots to win or send games to overtime. He is still getting you 20-ish points. There hasn't really been a flaw that Chet has had to go through. 40% three-point shooting, and he's scoring efficiently.
Yeah.
I actually consider bumping him up.
Yeah, a cool thing about Chet scoring is from each of the what is it, 4 zones that Cleaning the Glass splits the shooting into, he is above average at every single zone. So he's above average at the rim. He's above average on those short mid-range, which would be like your floaters. He's above average on long mid-range jump shots. He's above average on three-point jump shots. So this is an efficient scorer who is the anchor, like you say, not a help side guy, the anchor of a really good defense, and already an elite rim protector. I've got the number. Opponents shoot 59.5% at the rim when he's on the floor. Like, that's insane.
I remember earlier in the season having a discussion about like rim protection and defensive metrics and pulling up, shots contested and opponent field goal percentage decrease. And it was like, it was Gobert, I forget who else, and then Chet. And Chet was like there on all three metrics. And the other guy, I forget it was Jaren Jackson Jr. or one of the other like stable defensive player of the year type
Mm-hmm.
guys. Might have been Brooke Lopez. I don't think it was Lopez because they were still doing the funky switching thing. But like it was like, wow, this is a really crazy. It's only been like a 13 game sample size at that point. But he's still doing it. He's still putting up defensive player of the year type metrics.
Yeah,
And I think
and
I should have had him higher. I should have.
yeah, he's not only defensive player of the year type defensive impact, but then also a clear positive offensive player, which can't be said about you've got to go really down the list of defensive player of the year candidates before you get a guy who's a clear, strong, positive offensive player as well. And like the Thunder are way outperforming even, we expected them to be a good team and they're even outperforming what we expected. They're outperforming what a lot of people expected. And Chet is a big part of that. The fact that he's been able to provide floor spacing, provide efficient shooting, and also anchor a really solid defense.
I will say I pushed for them to be a 55 win team this year. So
That is valid. Okay. You called it. The rest of us are shocked. And Chet is the reason why.
yeah. Now they just have to trade for Kelly Olynyk. Make it happen. I'm gonna beat this drum till it happens. If he's your 11, then I have to ask where you have my 11. Where's Jaren Jackson Jr.?
At 9.
Okay. So still in the same relative range.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that you probably have him there for a little bit more past performance of what we've seen him do defensively. This year has been kind of crazy with a lot of injuries and a lot of guys in and out. And so I didn't want to tank him too bad. But we've basically seen him do what we're enjoying from Chet right now over the course of a longer time period. And I think he'll go back to it as guys get healthy.
Yep. And the one positive thing for Jaren this year, it's been a really negative season for the Grizzlies as a whole, including for him. The one positive thing is, playing as the center is that's always been really bad for the Grizzlies in past seasons whenever he's on the floor without another big man. This year, though, it's been solid. Like the defense has still been good in sort of all four factors, um, including defensive rebounding, which has always been the thing they struggled at most. That's the main reason that Steven Adams is such a important player for them, is that Steven Adams just dominates the defensive glass. But this year, they've been fine defensive rebounding. Even when Jaren's the lone five, which is the one knock against Chet. We gave him a lot of praise to say the one thing that he's bad at is that like the dude cannot box out. He's too skinny, doesn't have great, I guess, technique. Gives up a lot of offensive rebounds, which really hurts your defense. But Jaren doesn't do that anymore.
I would say you might need to cover your, precious vegan ears for this, but Chet might need a steak. He might need some red meat in that diet. They got to beef up.
He needs some tofu. He needs some seitan.
Get some beans.
He needs more beans. That's what he needs.
Chet is also vegan, so that is.
Is he?
Yeah.
What a legend. That explains. I got to bump him up a few spots.
I thought he was already getting the vegan bump from you.
Oh wow.
I shouldn't go on tangents right now, but my wife just watched a documentary on Netflix that was like a twin study, a dietary, and one ate a carnivore diet, the other ate a vegan diet for like an 8-week span, and they tested all sorts of metrics, and like it wasn't 100% like everyone needs to go vegan, but there were like a lot of really pro-vegan things. A lot of people kind of came out of that. We're like, you know what, we're gonna try to do a little bit more vegan stuff, and like. Maybe we're not going full vegan, but like we're gonna definitely reduce our red meat consumption and have like some tastier vegan alternatives. So,
unlike Chet, most people should not eat more red meat.
Yeah, but so now I have a head of cauliflower that I'm going to be making some cauliflower wings with probably tomorrow. So
awesome! I fucking love like fried cauliflower. Like I hate cauliflower for my entire life. Hated cauliflower. But when you get like some really good like deep fried cauliflower, especially when it's got like a bit of a kick to it, like a bit of there's a bit of cayenne in there. Like man, that'll fucking do it.
I got a nice spicy Asian sauce, so I mean American Asian. But all right, I'm gonna guess we have the same 7 players left that we haven't discussed yet, because we've discussed.
God, I hope so.
We've discussed. That's Franz Wagner, who is my 10. We've discussed Cade, who is my 9. We've discussed LaMelo, who is my 8. What number have we missed for you? We've got your 9. We've got your 10. Have we discussed your 8? Who is your 8?
No. Yeah, we're up to my 8. Are we finally going to align?
No, because LaMelo was my 8.
Ah, fuck. Okay. Şengün.
My 7. Tell me about Şengün.
Man, what if you had told me like 18 months ago that I'd be really high on Alperen Şengün? I would have thought you were insane. Like this is the exact type of player that I once despised.
Tried to put at 99 in our top 100 in Sabonis.
Okay. Yeah, and I was totally right about that. But it's a new world. It's a new NBA. This is not going against the James Harden Rockets and the peak Warriors anymore. You don't need super mobile switchable bigs or elite rim protectors. You can get it in other places. And he does enough things defensively that he can be part of a really good team and part of a really good defense. But then offensively, we've seen in recent years the way that you can get to a really good offense is by having big men who can do stuff with the ball. And he scores well. He's among the best passers in the league from the big man spot, and also does enough defensively, particularly rebounding, to be a positive contributor there as well.
Yeah. I heard that his post-up numbers are really slim, and I feel like when I watch him play, he posts up a lot more. But I guess what it is more is less of a post-up and more of like a mid-post catch drive into a spin, then let me body bump. And like he has the size.
Yeah, and so like second spectrum can like struggle to differentiate sometimes between like what's a post up and what's an ISO. And so
Hmm.
what you and I would see as a post up, second spectrum probably sees as an ISO. And so his ISO numbers are probably inflated. He's not standing at the top of the key and clearing out, but he's going one on one against a guy from the mid post.
Hmm. But like once he starts doing that drive, I really appreciate the big body, the ability to just go through guys. And it is funny, him and Fred VanVleet have a two-man action that is just straight up Jokic and Murray light. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely a discount version, but when it's working and when it's clicking, it, it's reminiscent. It reflects back on what it should be. Um, my thing is he's still a little bit streaky. There are still situations where he doesn't fit. And like I kind of thought that there was this tier of players there's that are like the up and coming stars, the Cades, the Balls, Şengün, Barnes, and Halliburton, or sorry, Burns and Caro, and that was my like 5 through 9, not necessarily in that order. Um, and like that's why I kind of held him back towards the back of that list, but still really high potential. I don't know if he makes the All Star team this year, but I think he'll make one soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, he might. We'll
Yeah.
have to see how it shakes out. Like the one knock on him is like the scoring efficiency could be a little bit better. Houston doesn't have like a really elite offensive talent around him though. So I feel like
Mhm.
it's not a super easy situation, and he's still like decent scoring efficiency. And then obviously offers almost nothing as a rim protector, but does do a lot of other things well to contribute defensively without being able to deter shots at the rim at all.
Mhm. All right. Do we align on number 6? Nope. Your 6 was Tyrese Maxey. God damn it. Who's your 7?
My seven is Paolo.
Just had to put Maxey up at 6. Paolo is my Paolo is my 6. Similar things. The guy creates very well. Uh, you know, whether you want to go like Point Griffin or um inexperienced LeBron James. I like these fours that can get in and drive. Um, it's a little bit of a fool's gold if they can't defend the rim and can't shoot, and you kind of end up in a space like Pascal Siakam or like Julius Randle. But the rise is really fun, and seeing them attack and seeing them grow, and his playmaking, I think might be able to set them apart. And like, what was Paolo hitting from three? Was this 37%? So he's not bad from three by any means. I just watched him be 1 for 6, and I think it was the Miami game I was watching. Um, but he does a lot of good things well, and he will be an all star.
Yeah. And the thing that turned me around on him before the last draft, where I kind of struggled to see the vision, before I heard the player comp of um, Pistons Blake Griffin. And that is like the way that I do think that he plays, where like he's this big man who's got great size and strength, and so you can't guard him with a small guy, but then who does have a handle, who does have some moves, and can shoot well enough from the perimeter. And then combine that with being a really good passer from a big man position, and like prime Blake Griffin was like a top 5 player, and he's got all the skill sets to be that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. And what's crazy is like you had Franz all the way back at 16. I only had him back at 10. But I know Magic fans that are like, no, Franz is the guy, and like they watch a lot more Magic than either of us. So it's not a crazy take. Um,
Yeah,
all right, we've gotten everyone out of the way. There's 5 players left. We both have 1 through 5 slots available. Do we finally get an alignment? It's Scotty
it's gotta
Barnes at
be.
number 5.
It's gotta be. We
Oh,
did
thank God.
it.
We did it. All right, shut the pod down. We don't need any more here. We're done. No, I mean, Barnes is developing as a playmaker. He is developing as a rim protector, but there are times where he can be your secondary rim protector option as a power forward. And there are times where you can have him guard out on the wings. I don't like him guarding points because he struggles to get around screens, but like he can
Yeah.
guard a lot of bigger twos or a lot of guys who are going to play more in isolation, he does that very well.
Yeah,
Um,
like I can't wait for him to move Siakam so he can be the 4
yeah.
and either like defend bigger guys or be that help side rim protector. And you combine that with the fact that he's got like basically point guard skills. Like it was really rough at times, him running point guard and just like not being able to create shots, going to mid range pull ups and missing all of them, turning the ball over. But they stuck with him. He got through the growing pains, and now he's a good playmaker, an
Mhm.
efficient scorer, solid defensively, can get some sort of mismatch against almost every kind of defender. And just like like this is exactly the vision that Toronto saw when he was an efficient 13-point per game scorer.
Yeah.
Now he's coming into it.
He knows how to use the size against smaller guys. He knows how to use the speed against bigger guys. The Lakers did not have an answer for him, which did kind of bite him a bit. Darko, their coach, with their rant about free throws. Barnes was getting to the rim fairly uncontested. Like,
You can't get free throws when you're just blowing past guys constantly.
yeah, yeah, it was a little bit too easy. He doesn't quite have that, like, all right, I got past you. Let me hesitate, let you bump me, and now I get the free throw. The like tricky foul drawing. He just goes straight for it, which I appreciate. I like to see, but yeah. Um, I'm gonna guess we have the same number one. Guys 2 through 4, super interchangeable. I flipped them around a half a dozen times.
Mhm.
Who is your 4?
I ended up going with Tyrese, but I, like you, considered him strongly up at 2 and obviously for 3 as well.
Yeah, I I thought about putting Ja at 4. I went with Tyrese. And a little bit of it's Tyrese's ability to be attacked defensively. I think that is the biggest flaw of those 3 guys that we have for 2 through 4.
Yeah. And I mean, let me ask you a question. Strictly offensive season, so best offensive season, like, is he top 2?
Um, I'd want to know a little bit more about percentages is for
Mm,
some of these guys because he was shooting amazing in for a while, but I feel like that's come back down to earth a lot because he just had a slump before he went out with the injury. At least top 5 league wide. Luca is above him, I would say, and I would potentially put Jokic above him.
yeah. Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
wonder if I would
that,
even have him
it's a
above Luka,
it's
strictly
a
from an offensive
small.
season.
That's because you hate Luca. I know it.
And
But
yeah, after that slump, his 3-point percentage is down at 41% on high volume and high difficulty. So, it's he's really struggling.
yeah, kind of after the IST, he's fallen off, which is really crazy. Because like the IST was not that much. It wasn't like I'm hearing talks of like people being like, well, they should go to Europe. And I'm like, they like went to Vegas. That's like it's not that big of a flight. They got days off. Like I don't know why this is psyching everyone out that much. But all right, if Halliburton is both of our 4s, let's wrap this up here. Is your 3 Ja Morant?
It is.
Yeah, I consider having him down just with the injury. I don't know what he's going to come back looking like.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like he attacks the rim incredibly well. He doesn't have the shooting of Halliburton, but the rim pressure and attack I think is a lot better. And then you just can't pick on him as much defensively.
Yeah, and ultimately, what led me to go Jar over Tyrese, even though like I think Tyrese is probably a better playmaker, and the 3-point shooting is more valuable, and he does that a lot better than Jar does. Is I feel like Jar has been in big games before, play in playoff series and played fairly well. Whereas Tyrese, the closest thing that he's been to in a playoff series was the in-season tournament final where when the team was able to lock in on him and scheme around him, they pretty much took him out of the game.
Hmm. Yeah, and there are worse. There's fates in life if them being a bit scheme aroundable. Well, but what Halliburton does is really good. just being able to lead the team and have that offensive efficiency. All right, so they're 2, they're 3. Then we're going to probably align on 1 and 2. Anthony Edwards 2, Luka Doncic 1.
Yep.
Who do you want to talk about? I'll let you pick one. I'll talk about the other.
I mean, I feel like there's not too much to say on these guys. Like these two are pretty much known commodities at this point. They've got a track record of excellent play. Anthony Edwards as a shot creator, an efficient scorer, a guy who can like really zone in and be a really good on-ball defender, and a guy who has played in some absolutely huge in-season tournament games. And yeah, played really well. I don't have much of a doubt that he's a guy whose game is going to be able to sustain playoff basketball. And as a guy who can be part of an elite offense, can be part of an elite defense, like not a lot of holes to pick in his game.
Yeah. For Luka, I had done the numbers. He is leading the NBA likely all time in points scored and created, because we now have assist created or shot created metrics, or how many points people are getting off of your assist, which I think that is wild that he is doing that. That is truly impressive. It also, just the increase in offense and increase in flow and point scoring, I'm a little bit less impressed. Like it's about a point more than what we got from Prime or from MVP Russell Westbrook. And then on the flip side of that, the team with him on versus with him off hasn't shown that much difference. They can find the scoring in other ways, and it's not necessarily his fault, but I do think this is just one of the limitations when you have a super heliocentric offense, that it relies entirely on one guy. When Luka's out, you have Kyrie, and they didn't have Kyrie for December, and Luka's numbers actually are much better in December when they used him more and just went entirely through him. And there you actually do see an on-off split in December. The team is 5 points better with him on and then with him off. Throughout the course of the entire year, it's about 1 point difference. I don't know. I will also say that he has become better defensively. He can compete with his man in one-on-one contests. If you isolate him, he will compete and try, but he still doesn't always get back. So
yeah, that's his biggest defensive flaw, is just the fact that he doesn't ever get back on defense. Like he will complain after every single play and give up fast breaks on every single play and leave his team to play 4-on-5 on basically every single play.
Yeah, they're like 8 points better defensively per 100 possessions with him off. Just he does still hurt the defense. No matter what you want to say about individual defense, but the dude is one of the 5 best players in the league right now. There's just not other things to say. I know you don't have him there, but
it is. Yeah, and it is crazy that he is this good and this young. When I did my first list, I didn't even consider him because I was like, no way, Luke is 24 years old. But this dude is in his age 24, by Basketball Reference season. This is ridiculous that he's this good at this age. And yeah, like the one knock against him is the potential susceptibility of heliocentrism to like failure, which is like a more of a team criticism than a personal criticism.
Exactly. And if I just want to look at the guys that are 24 that were on our list. We had Luka, we had Ja Morant, we have Jaren Jackson Jr., Darius Garland, Tyler Hero, Nick Claxton, Emmanuel Quickley, Anthony Simons, and Naz Reid. If Walker Kessler, sorry, I didn't have his age because he wasn't actually on my list, just typed him in. But we've got a lot of these guys are going to be back on this next year. If we keep doing this and this becomes like a regular segment, we're bringing back Anthony Edwards. We're bringing back from Tyrese Halliburton. These guys are still so young. It's crazy to think about some of these guys being the top tier talent in the league, and being on this just crazy young age curve.
Yeah.
Paolo's 21. We had him at 7 and 6, and this guy is 21. Any closing thoughts or remarks?
Yeah, the one thing about this is that it does kind of make me depressed that all these guys are so good at what they do and so much younger than me. And so I figure for the next for our next segment, it's guys you didn't know were younger than Dylan is. Guys who seem like they're a lot older. Oh, sorry, a lot younger, but are actually older than me rather. Just to make me feel good about
I
myself.
I remember when the Lakers drafted Andrew Bynum, and like he was 17 years old, and I was like, I don't know how old I was. What they drafted him in 2005, so I was like 13. I was like, I could have played this guy in high school. Like I play 17 I will be playing 17-year-olds when the season starts up because I'll be 14. Like it was wild to me, like the NBA players are now my age, and then as I started like get older than guys, I was like, oh, I guess that's what we're doing now. Now they're younger than me. It's a
Yeah,
weird place to get to.
it's a that was like a big turning point in my life. Like I'd always entertained the fact that, one day I would wake up and have just like grown, you know, 18 inches and an incredible, burst of sudden talent would arise. And then once guys that are younger than you start getting drafted, it's like, man, it's time to hang it up.
Kyrie is like 30 days older than me. That's the players that are my age. Like that's kind of crazy to think about. Maybe next time instead of doing a younger 25 and under or 24 and under, we'll do a 35 and over or something. Be like, all right, who are the old guys that are still balling in the league?
Yeah, these guys are still killing it. And you can
Uh,
too.
all right. Well, Dylan, where can the people find you?
Every week on the Hoops Temple podcast.
Find me here as well. Email us hoopstemple@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.